Happy New Year, Ken McAuliffe, Jazz Vinyl Lover, back once more again here in January. Starting to snow in New York City, which makes me very happy because New York City is quiet when it snows. The rest of the time it's just 8 million fucking mongrels battling for space. I want to talk about some records that are not particularly hard to find, but there's so many great jazz records, and ones like in my Jazz Vinyl Lovers group that get posted all the time. There's so many great jazz records we just don't hear about. And I thought I'd sort of like go into the cracks a little bit and pull out some records that I thought are really cool records. They don't cost much, they're not hard to find, but they're really great records. One of them, Stan Getz, Sweet Rain. Stan Getz made a lot of records, beautiful sound. This one on Verve, I should have my glasses on. 67 with Ron Carter, Grady Tate, and Chick Corea. I think this is probably the same group that did Captain Marvel, but with Tony Williams on drums. That's another great Stan Getz record. But this is a really beautiful record, well recorded, Stan in beautiful form. So that's one. He has a lot of records, and there are a lot to choose from. Most people go for the most obvious records, the Getz Gilberto, the Samba records, but he made a lot of really great records. And I think he was pretty highly respected in his day, and still so. I mean, a very iconic, unique sound, a beautiful sound on the tenor. Beautiful tenor sounds are sort of not in vogue today, but there are a couple players who have really beautiful sounds, like Mark Turner, Noel Preminger. The great Three Sounds. I can't talk enough about the Three Sounds. You can get first pressing Three Sounds record for not much money on eBay because nobody seems to care about them. They weren't stars, they weren't cool, they weren't progressive. They were just really in the pocket. Their records are kind of simple. They're just grooving records, but they're very well recorded because they're just a trio. And I have a feeling that Rudy Van Gelder probably liked them as well because they're just really well recorded. And they did a lot of dates for Blue Note and even went on to do some other dates for other labels, but the band's changed. But the great Gene Harris led this group. And if you want to hear a perfect example of Rudy Van Gelder recording of the Blue Note groove, you can't go wrong with the Three Sounds. Esther Phillips was really popular in the 70s. She was called Little Esther Phillips in the early days. I think she sang in like R&B reviews, but she's got a very unusual voice, sort of a cross between Ann Peebles and Dinah Washington, very funky. And the bands on these 70s records, dig the Mirror Effect, was the cream of the 70s session era with Will Lee and Steve Gadd and Ralph McDonald and Richard T and all those great players. So these records groove in that really hardcore 70s, we've done a lot of coke before we run off to do a jingle, then go do some important session later in the night. But these are fun records, and she's a great singer. Maybe not everybody's taste. She's not Ella. She's not Sarah Vaughan. I'm not a Sarah Vaughan fan. But these are great records. They don't cost much, and she's just funky, and the grooves are really funky. Esther Phillips. This is one of the first jazz records I really got into. A friend of mine who was a great guitar player who drank coffee and smoked cigarettes all day long told me about it. Monk in Motion. It's one of the early Monk, Paul Motion, Joe Lovano, and Bill Frisell records playing Monk tunes, and it is just off the fucking charts. They're spiraling and going and going. I mean, I wish they'd done a few of these Monk records because what a great idea of those three exploratory players just taking off on Monk's tunes. And it's just, banging up against the walls. I think this is mid-'80s. But there's a number of these ECM, or rather Black Saint Soul Note records with this trio, and these are all worth searching out. They're kind of hard to find now because they're imports, I guess. This is a Japanese copy, JMT. No, it says Japan, but printed in West Germany. Who knows? Back when there were no walls. Somebody in our group posted might have been the same record, Thelonious Monk work. My favorite Thelonious Monk records are his early Prestige records, way pre-CBS, pre-Riverside. He's kind of working it out, and it's just really funky and grooving and really happening. This is Quartet. This is probably a compilation because some of his stuff came out on singles. Thelonious Monk Trio, Quintet, Sonny Rollins Quartet. If you can find this probably costs some money. This is an original Prestige. Far out freaky green cover, but this is well worth looking for. I mean, you can see Monk. He's in full dance mode right there, and his fingers are doing some bizarre chord. But the early monks on Prestige are hard to find. These are hard to find, but they're not the usual super popular things. People are always saying, where the young jazz artist on vinyl. This is one of them, Nicole Mitchell. This came out, I think, a couple years ago. Part of the new spiritual jazz thing, but she's really great. She's the real deal in my estimation. I think she plays flute. You just put this record on and it just sort of takes off. Nicole Mitchell, Mandorla Awakening 2, Emerging Worlds. Just a great record. Even the cover art is great, right? I mean, this is cover art worthy of 60s, 70s cover art. I mean, so it's a wonderful package. The little green thing means I've ultrasonically cleaned it on my ultrasonic cleaner, which makes a really big difference. As with Monk work, this is a really early Charles Mingus record that is essential. East Coasting. This is one of the first ones I heard, and it's such a great classic. And we get people into the Jazz Record Center occasionally on Saturdays who are looking for this, and it's sort of have to be in the know. Not really, but it's just such a great record. It's a great band. Mingus, Jimmy Knepper, Danny Richmond, Bill Evans on piano, 1957. It's just, I mean, it has everything that I love about Mingus personally. The soulfulness, the beautiful songwriting, the great performances. It's all very concise, coherent, in a nut of Mingus. And this is this Bethlehem Records, manufactured and distributed by Carey Industries Inc. This is some third level reissue. But if you don't know what Mingus album to get, there's so many great Mingus albums on Columbia. Later on just a couple on Solid State. This is a great one. Search it out. East Coasting by Charlie Mingus. I think I paid $5 for this. Another great record, Slips Beneath the Cracks. Pat Metheny with Nana Vasconcelos and Lyle Mays. Also Steve Rodby. He's already switched over to Steve Rodby. This is the beautiful example of, I think, Pat Metheny's genius, writing beautiful tunes. It's kind of a sedate record, but brilliantly performed. It's just a great mood. I mean, some Friday night, put this on, when you and your wife are having a few drinks. This will take you out the whole way. It's just such a beautiful record. ECM, it's got the ECM thing going on. It's got Nana Vasconcelos doing all the Brazilian percussion. Some of Pat's greatest melodies. People love to get Letter from Home and Still Live Talking. That's another one of my favorites. Travels, 8081. But this is kind of like Pat's bossa nova record, even though it's not really bossa nova. Not a hard record to find, but a great record. The great Mel Lewis, he's the opposite of today's gospel chops drummers who play everything in the world. Mel Lewis is extremely understated. Didn't like to take drum solos, but just had such a great snap in his playing and economy, and just a beautiful flow in his drumming. And this is this is an original pressing, but once again, this was reissued many, many, many different times. But this is an original mode pressing. Mel Lewis 6, Charlie Mariano, Bill Holman, Jack Sheldon, Marty Paik, Buddy Clark. There aren't that many Mel Lewis records. Of course, there are all the great Mel Lewis, Thad Jones big band records, the Village Vanguard records, but there aren't that many pure Mel Lewis records, and they're actually all great. They all have his spirit. He did some later ones in the 70s, but not that much. But they're just really, I don't want to say he's gentle, but he had a very beautiful touch on the drum set. Very light in a way. This is a record that's been reissued many times. It was originally overseas, Tommy Flanagan with Wilbur Ware and the great, great, great Elvin Jones. But it finally came out as this is the complete session. I think this is a double LP. No, it's a single LP, but it has all like 12 tracks. Overseas, originally the LP only had like 7 tracks. The CD had a couple more. I've seen a couple of really ugly reissues. There's one from in the EU where they don't give a shit too often, where they stretch the bodies. But if you can find this on Dragon, or is it DIW? But actually, any copy of Overseas is great. It's a great example of Elvin Jones playing brushes, Tommy Flanagan playing beautifully understated piano. It's just like high jazz art. Beautiful trio playing, the epitome of what jazz trio, piano trio is all about. Some people love Hank Jones. I like Tommy Flanagan because he's a little more involved. Then we're closing with yet another strange Monk record, also on Prestige, The Golden Monk, with Monk, Sonny Rollins, Julius Watkins, Percy Heath, Willie Jones on one side, then another group on the other side. It's a compilation. It's probably on a single or an EP or something earlier. But once again, these are worth checking out. I do have a new record that's kind of cool. I actually haven't listened to it. Duck Baker plays the music of Herbie Nichols. I haven't opened it yet, but it kind of freaked me out when I got it. I've never heard of Duck Baker. Apparently this record has been out before, but it's been reissued on LP. And I'm looking forward to cracking the seal on this baby. Look at Herbie. He can't afford to get a suit that actually fits. Or maybe it fit when he bought it. Anyway, Jazz Vinyl Lover, Ken McCall, thanks a lot for checking out my thing. Check out my group, Jazz Vinyl Lovers, on Facebook. Please check out my writing in Downbeat, more so in Jazz Times these days, because the people at Downbeat are kicking out all the old writers. That's the way it goes. But Jazz Times is great. And please read my reviews in Stereophile of all the overpriced hi-fi gear. Thanks a lot, folks. Happy New Year.